This is our board that we coded for a game assignment. We coded Pac-Man, or rather a previous version of that. We had to do that in the module for Microprocessor in the first semester of the winter semester at TU Dublin.
Yeah, this is our project, and we spent a lot of time on this to fine-tune it and to code it and make it work. And I think we did a good job.
Now going over to the board view.
Alright, so we start off in the main menu here, where you have 4 options. You can press up to start, right to mute, down to roll the credits, and left to switch on Miss Pac-Man. So we're gonna press start, and we've been transported to a random location on the map. There are 5 locations that can be chosen, and whichever one is chosen is random. So this is player 1 playing right now, and as you can see, there are many ghosts on the board. There are 4 ghosts, and we have to try to avoid them. And right now, as I'm playing, I'm also picking up dots. These dots act as points to make a scoring system. And I've hit the ghost and I died. So now I'll hand it off to player 2.
Yeah, now it's my turn to play. We see on the screen a player 2 in green. We have external LEDs that indicate which player is currently playing. We see the last player spawned over here. I spawned in the middle. It's one of our locations that we can spawn in. The counter in the top normally just counts up. I don't want this video to be taken too long, so I'll just skip it. Here's our scoreboard. We have 2 player scores, both are displayed over here, and we have 1 defined winner. We even have some output on the computer to indicate which person is the winner. There is also the option to have a draw. To return to the main menu, we implemented that you have to reset the board using the reset button. If we do this, we go back to the main menu. Over here, we've got the credits button, just the credits, what we did, and to return, press reset again. Our Miss Pac-Man was an interesting thing. She was implemented after one of our testers said, hey, why do we have only Pac-Man in there? We want to have Miss Pac-Man. So here's the game modus where all the models were just used over to the Miss Pac-Man model. Sadly, our death sound system doesn't really seem to work, but we'll keep working on that. Our mute system is, as you can hear, our background system is very annoying, so we implemented to have a mute button in there, just to have the option to shut down the music. It's very nice to work with this board if you don't have the annoying music in the background.
So over here, I'm about to collect the last 2 dots. So after I collect all the dots, it switches to player 2 automatically. So when you die, it creates an ASCII output to the serial module to just show that you've died. And it shows the result as well of the game.
Also as a draw on the game itself.
Yeah. So if the 2 players have equal points when they die, it's a draw. Or if they win and they both have equal points, it's a draw. So this is the output for when player 1 wins. Yeah. So this is the output for when player 2 wins.
We're gonna talk about the code now, the code that's running the project here. So first of all, we have the header files. So all these files are being called from here. And then over here, we have all these definitions. So this defines the screen height and width. This defines all the walls, how big the walls are, and where they are on the screen. So this is all here just to make it easier to make small changes. Small changes, so you can just change it up here instead of going through the entire code to change everything. And over here, we're defining the player size and the ghost size. Over here are the number of dots there are on the map. And this is the target score, the score that we have to reach. And over here, the player positions are being defined. And the ghost positions are being defined as well. And this is the direction of the ghost. So this is so the ghost can change direction, going left to right or right to left. So by default, all the ghosts are set to go right first. Then when they hit a wall or the edge of the screen, it changes. So here we're defining all the functions. As you see, we have a lot of functions. So we try to use an 8-bit integer where we can just to save space. Over here, we're defining the lists or the structures for the background notes and stuff. We're defining notes over here, needed at times. And this is the structure for the dot. So this is the X position of the dot, the Y position, and the presence. So this tells the system if the dot is present or visible to the player or not. And this helps with collection. So here we have a list of the dots, and this tells us the position of all of the dots and if they are present or not. So by default, all these dots are present. Then we're setting the score to 0 and the player hit variable to 0. This tells us if the player has been hit by a ghost or not. And this is for the music, and this is for the menu, the choice here.
Nice, okay. Good. Now over to the main part. We start with setting a few values that are needed for the code and for the movement of the player and for the ghosts. Then we're setting a few other more values. We're having a random number generator in the background running for the starting point of where Pac-Man spawns. Here's the background handling for the background music. Initializing serial output and all of that. Here's the random seeding for the random number generator. We go to the main menu. We have a value here that normally automatically goes in the main menu. Here we have a random number generator to generate the number where we spawn. We have a menu system with a player location and a bit of nice artwork above that. we had an alt menu here. Then we have the detection what the user presses, like going down, starting the game, if they want to see the credit score or the turn of the music. Here we have a function to override the player model with the Miss Pac-Man model, just to have the option to use it throughout the game. Here we have the switch case, where we decide from the random number where the player should spawn. Here are the different locations where he can spawn, and we just have a system that decides where he spawns.
We're moving on here to this part of the game. So this is where player 2 plays. And as you can see, the position of the player is decided here at random. So this is basically the same as player 1. Everything's just reset. So player 2 can start on a clean sort of map. And over here we have the functions to move the red ghost or to move all of the ghosts. And this just moves the ghosts, and this moves the player. So that calls this function over here, so down here. So basically this takes the input from the player pressing the buttons, and it puts it into this function here. And this basically, it lets the player move if it's not colliding with any of this stuff. Over here is the animation part, where the Pac-Man is animated. Yeah, and this is showing the red ghost moving. It's pretty simple. It uses pretty much the same system that Pac-Man uses, except it has this to change directions. So by default, like it starts out going right, but as soon as it hits a wall, the direction changes to 0 and it goes left. Then when it goes left and it hits a wall again, or the edge of the screen, then it goes right. Yeah, the direction changes to right, then the ghost goes right, and that just loops infinitely there. Well, it's not infinite, but it just runs every time that the function is called. This all is to animate the ghost. So here's the toggle variable, and after each iteration, the toggle inverts. So it changes from 1 to 0. And if it's 1, it plays this image. If it's 0, it plays this image. Yeah, actually, no, sorry, the other way. If it's 0, it plays this image. If it's 1, it plays this image. So alternating that every iteration just animates the ghost. That's pretty much what happens with all of the ghosts. And over here we can see that if the player collides with the ghost, then player hit, the global variable, changes to 1. So that goes back up here to the main function. And that basically cancels out this condition, so this loop ends. And it either changes player or the game ends.
In the move ghost function, we're calling to check if the player is colliding with the ghost. For this, we give the player coordinates and the ghost coordinates, and we've got a big long function to check if any of the four corners of the player is colliding with any of the four corners of the ghost. If we collide, like we already said, it sets the player hit to 1. Then we have a death animation playing, and this death animation is a combined thing for the death sound. Then we have the death animation in 4 frames, and then we have a serial output to get a flying Roger flag out to the screen. Here we have the sound system that plays if we collect a dot. Originally we had something else planned here, but it was too long and took too long and the game froze while it was collecting a point, so we didn't use that and just put some notes there. When we go back to the background system, at the beginning of the code, we are setting we have the option to turn off the music. We have a normal switch case diagram for this. If we want to hear the background music, we've got this loop going on that runs all the time in the background and turns on the music. If we decide to not play the background, we just put a play node 0 here and stop the loop, so it just doesn't play anything. If something breaks that was during the testing phase, we have a random node playing.
Alright, so we have this function, check.collection, and this is called in the main function. So basically, this checks if this part here checks if the dot is present, and it rolls this is inside function with the dots x coordinate and y coordinates, and it checks if the player is basically overlapping with the dot, and if the dot is present, and if it is, it sets the presence to 0, and it increments the score by 10, and then it clears the dot at these coordinates, and then here we have this over here, so if it checks if there's a switch. So if there's no switch, then it plays this image. And then these are the sound effects. Over here is the check if the player switch. So if the player is switched, the score is reset to 0. And this display the score, and then this just returns the value of the score. This just displays the score here. This is the convert score to a character variable, score text, so it can be displayed. This is roll the credits, just a helper function to make it simple to roll the credits main. These are helper functions for turning on and off the red and green LEDs. So while player 1 is playing, the red LED plays, and while player 2 is playing, the green LED is on. And this is for the sound effect.